one summer, we decided to throw a party for our magazines in the mid 1990s. Wizard was doing about 400,000 copies at the time, just in English, 75 countries, dozen languages. And then all of a sudden, we started an event called ComiCon, and 20,000 people showed up. And that changed everything.
Good morning, Avery. How are you doing?
I am great. We're wrapping up 2024. It is wonderful to see you, Sam. How are you doing?
I am feeling very all over the place. End of year is always such a challenging time, but I'm excited for a little bit of a downtime and then a crazy 2025. Next show, we're going to focus on some predictions and wrap ups for the year. We have a great show this year. And then we have a couple stories I wanted to ask you about. Are you ready?
I am so ready. Let's dive in.
All right. So, Avery, this week we did have the launch of Pengu, the Pudgy Penguins token. A lot of folks are talking about this as like one of the larger openings for retail to get into the crypto space because everyone from Pudgy Penguins holders, little Pudgies holders, but also anyone who bought the toys was also eligible to claim. In addition, people who had traded on Solana or traded on Ethereum in the NFT space also got a little bit of an allocation. So it seemed to be kind of a really open for all opportunity to bring folks into the tokenization scheme. The other thing is the Pudgies team, Igloo, which is the group behind them, are launching a chain called Abstract, which is coming out, I believe, in January. So I think they're trying to play this kind of robust three-pronged attack. We have a chain, we have a token, and we have a product.
It is multidimensional, to say the least.
Multidimensional, exactly, multi-hyphenate. But the only thing what has been interesting is when it first hit the market, it was about a $4.5 billion market cap. Right now, we're sitting at 1.6. So it is down about 2/3 from its first kind of pre-trading activity. So it makes one wonder how many people on the inside, people got early allocations, were dumping that. I don't know if that's the best narrative, I guess is the question. A lot of people are saying it's fine, hold it. He's a builder, Luca Nets, he'll make it happen. But I think, I wanted to get your thoughts on the idea of a Pengu token. Is this, again, too insider crypto for the mainstream retail audience? Or is this one way to bring them in?
Yeah, for one, I want to congratulate Luca and his whole team because I think they did a pretty phenomenal job of orchestrating this. We just talked about the fact that it was multidimensional. You talked about all of the different touch points and ways that they really brought in the Pudgies community to make this special. I think it's kind of core to crypto to have this sort of feeling of, oh, geez, you were in early, we're going to reward you. That's very like the ethos of how crypto works. And the other big sort of commonality of crypto is there's also copycats everywhere. And we've already seen 2 different NFT projects since then have massive sort of speculation around launching their own token. So let's see what ends up happening with that. But I think that they did a really nice job. It's really interesting. A lot of the holders just kind of see this as, a gift from Santa. Santa seems to love the crypto industry, so I'm not surprised a lot of them immediately cashed out. I think that that's kind of expected behavior. But at the same time, I think that Luca has proven time and time again that he is able to withstand normal market conditions and extreme market conditions and continue to sort of build this Pudgy Penguins brand. So I would not bet against him. I am pro Pengu. They also have already been listed on several major exchanges, which is a big deal, just in terms of more broad awareness. It's damn impressive.
It is. The one thing that made me think about, that made me go sort of about for a second, was that the inside audience, yes, they love it. They always like free money. Remember, it's a taxable event, guys. It is December. So you can also wait to get your claim until after that. But I thought that when I went to the page to take a look at how one does it, it's like it wants you to link an ETH wallet. It wants you to link a Solana wallet. 2 different wallet links. So, because it sort of like looks at your ETH activity, but then pays you out in a token that's on Solana. Right. So there was a little bit of that kind of friction. And again, feels like
I think Solana somehow was a partner in this or incentivized.
Oh, potentially, for sure. Yeah. But it still made me think like linking 2 wallets for one for payout, one for this. And it made me kind of feel like, is this the kind of thing that has just too much complexity for the person who spent $20 like from a plushie at Walmart?
I wonder how many people who bought a plushie at Walmart are even aware of the Penu Token, Sam.
Agreed. I know everyone thinks the penguins are cute. We know that they are, but yes, exactly. It sort of feels like, hey, if this got me another $1.50 in tokens, maybe it's not worth having to figure out what a Phantom wallet is and a MetaMask is and that kind of thing. So we will keep an eye on Pengu. Definitely keep an eye on Luca and what the team are building. They are, I think, some of the most active and vocal builders in the space. But yeah, I think it was something that you mentioned. A lot of people are going to take it to heart and say, I could also create a $1 billion plus
Some
opportunity.
cryptic messages happening on crypto Twitter, which
Yes.
have the crypto and particularly NFT industry ablaze with excitement. Burnt
Yeah.
Toast tweeted out something, I'm sure you saw, that seemed to be an innocuous message on the surface, but many people read into it.
Yes.
Token is coming. So I
Absolutely.
think that immediately sent the floor of doodles skyrocketing.
Yes. Not having any doodles nor any penguins. I'm just going to sit here on the sidelines and watch.
That's why you got to hold, Sam.
It is what you got to hold. Avery, I was looking yesterday. Oh, actually, not yesterday. About a week ago, I bought my partner a Aura ring. I know people love a good tracking software and a wearable. And I noticed they just closed another $200 million round. Values the company at a little over $5 billion. I feel like we spent a lot of time this year talking about different types of wearables, the Humane Pin, the Apple Vision Pro, some of these other things that are meant to track your life or document your life. And I think not many of them had success.
Correct.
The Aura still seems to be something that people continually buy, continually wear. Feels like a very much more passive wearable device. And I guess I wanted to ask you, with this latest round announcement that just came out this week, is there some part of the wearable world that says we are so back?
I think that the wearables world always happens to coincide with the holiday season,
Mm,
as you won't be surprised. This is a big gift giving thing. Everyone's New Year's resolution: be healthier, walk more, sleep more, etc. So I don't know if you got that Aura ring as a holiday gift, but a lot of people do. And I feel like during the holiday season, these are often launched, whether it's like the new version of the Ray-Ban Meta glasses or a new Aura ring or a new Humane Pin, a new something that you're going to wrap up and put under the tree. New Quest actually just had a new commercial that came out earlier this week, excuse me, with Jane Fonda. So I think that people always try to use that sort of commercial activity as a time to like launch and push new devices. People love various devices, but remember when Fitbits were a big thing? I've just
mhm.
feel like there's sort of a constant cycle of health and wellness devices that tend to often peak around the holiday season.
Mm. It's interesting. I was talking to my daughter about this, and I said, should I get an Aura ring? And she said, well, are you looking to track your cycles?
Mhm. Hilarious.
and and then as I was asking people around, it seems like this is like a device that actually is very beneficial, especially if you're a woman.
Mhm.
And I wonder how much of their marketing and how much of the staying power is because it actually has all this utility from a kind of physiology perspective, specifically around women. Whereas I feel like I still see a lot more men talk about the Whoop as
Mhm.
like more of a workout device and a sleep device and
We need
hyper
to
performance
corroborate that
device.
with fact. I don't know if that's true. I feel like I've heard
All
women like the
anecdote.
Whoop too.
This is all anecdote. All right. So, according to you, you believe holidays are driving the wearable market again, and
Yes.
maybe we'll take a check in first quarter and see if it still seems as hot.
Yep.
The final thing, Avery, the story I saw before we get to our guest, was the announcement of the Jetson Orin Nano Super, which is not another one of Elon Musk's children, but is a $249 supercomputer that Nvidia just announced. It's basically a hobbyist kit, so you can kind of build almost their version of like a Raspberry Pi, but with a tremendous amount of processing power. It's about the size of like a pack of cigarettes. And the way that Jensen Huang talks about it is he thinks this is really like the brain that you can put into chatbots, into AI robotics, that you can utilize it for kind of a variety of different applications, but it is really focused on AI LLM models that you could put into activities. And it just made me think about the idea that we have on the one hand people buying M100 chips, for hundreds of thousands of dollars, if not more. And then on the other hand, any sort of hobbyist can spend $249 and probably build these days a pretty powerful brain behind a lot of their computing devices. And I think I just want to give a hats up to Nvidia for being one of those companies that is so good at building the entire stack back to front. And, is this yet another way that AI is going to infiltrate our lives as it now allows for small, folks who are building Lego devices to actually give super intelligence to those devices. I was wondering any thoughts on Nvidia's year, but also this device itself.
I don't know enough about the device itself to have like a very informed take, but I mean, Nvidia's had an insane year. I think if we were speaking 2 years ago on this podcast, I didn't even know what Nvidia was,
Mm.
and certainly do now. I think that it's the consciousness of just like the average consumer, the average business savvy, tech savvy consumer around this has skyrocketed. Though people who've been like in the tech industry have like long sort of known the importance of what they do. And I think that Gen AI continues to bring a lot of this to the forefront of people's consciousness. Other thing that makes me really excited about what you just shared is just the opportunity for entrepreneurs and folks who are building like new things from scratch. Those who are building now, like they're just automatically infusing this into their process in a way that a lot of like big companies are like retrofitting it in. And of course, this is the way of the world and the way that evolution happens. But I'm really excited for the companies that are going to be built in 2025 using a lot of this sort of AI to supercharge what they're going to do with their businesses.
100%. I think that is the real opportunity is, what happens 12 and 18 months or down the road when people get their hands on this tech that's very accessible. And, at $249 retail, you can build a product that you can then sell, for $1,500, that this becomes the sort of powering device, the brain of. So we will keep our eyes on that. Avery, we have a great guest today coming. After the break, Gareb Shamus. Gareb is one of the originators of ComiCon. Gareb had a magazine called Wizard, which is a sort of a pioneering magazine in the comic book and collectibles industry, among many other magazines that he started. He's got a really cool new project focused on celebrity collectibles. So I thought it'd be great to have Gareb on. I've been getting to know him over the last couple of months, and just has a lot of great stories about the early days of Comic-Con, as well as kind of insights on collectible culture. So after the break, we'll be right back with Gareb.
Can't wait to have him on.
We all want to believe in something. In Chinese, belief also means trust. We want to trust our systems and each other to explore new frontiers and build a future beyond what we know. For the past 10 years at Consensus, pioneers, builders, and dreamers have gathered together to create a new financial system where everyone has value. Join us at Consensus Hong Kong, where belief becomes real.
All right, we are back with Gareb Shamus. Gareb, you have such an illustrious career. You and I spent a lot of time together in the last bunch of months. You were down with us at Scope Art Festival last week as well. So I really wanted to have you on the show. Gareb, you founded Wizard Magazine, Ace Comic-Con. You have a new company called StarPics we'll talk about. But I thought it would be great if you could give the audience just like your 2-minute bio. Who's Gareb Shamus, and why do you think you're here?
Oh, great. It's so wonderful to talk to you. I love talking about superheroes, and that's my whole life. So I'll get that started. I grew up with 3 brothers collecting sports cards and comic books since I was a young kid. And I got so invested in the collecting and just hanging out with my brothers and my family that it became such a big family business that we wound up opening up a retail store when I was a kid. So it was literally like having a candy store in the family. And then as I grew up, I started Wizard Magazine. And we can get into that, but my whole career has been, since I'm 21, has been in the superhero space, and it's just been absolutely wonderful.
Amazing. So, Gareb, that seems like a dream life. You're a kid in a candy store, except it's a comic book store. And you have really built your career on this sort of concept of collecting. Can you share a little bit about how you think about sort of the world of collecting? As a publisher, you were so early to the trend with Wizard Magazine, all about comics, but you've also had properties focused on gaming, on anime, on toys, even on Beanie Babies. So what was
Yeah.
the insight that kind of drove this common thread of collecting?
So I just grew up collecting. I mean, it was really very simple. And I had 3 brothers. So I always had somebody to collect with. And then also, we were like a team. So it wasn't just us individually, it was us going out, whether it was school and flipping and trading cards or going to the store, or just all of us looking in. And then when it turned into a family business with the store, Then I learned the business of it, where it was really about acquisition and buying things at the right price, buying the right kind of things, knowing what you could sell, right? So I had a unique access to not only buy everything that was available potentially, but also I knew what people wanted. And that was kind of the key when you're in the collectible space. You also want to be in a situation where you also have a pulse on what other people want. And I always had that. And that's really what got me started. So that when I graduated college, I started a newsletter for the store about comic books. And I had a Mac computer, I had a photocopy machine. It was 1990. So it was right at the emergence of desktop publishing. And I started a newsletter. And what happened was, all of us, it was all about comic books. And the name of the store was called The Wizard of Cards and Comics. And all of a sudden, I had a real pulse on what people wanted because we'd put out this newsletter, and then all of a sudden, we'd sell a lot more things in the store. And that's when the comic book sales started skyrocketing for us. And then I turned that into Wizard Magazine. And then through that process, because now I was a magazine publisher starting out at 30,000 people, and then within a year doing 100, then 200, then 300,000 copies a month just in English. We got into 75 countries with just Wizard Magazine. All of a sudden, the feedback loop was incredible because now all of a sudden we know what we wanted, and now we were getting the feedback from our fans on what they wanted. And that just catapulted us. And then because we own the magazine, we had an opportunity to just literally do whatever we wanted. And since we were making money, we didn't really have a boss. We didn't have to worry about pleasing anybody but ourselves. And we were just a ragtag bunch of guys. I was 22, 23 at the time. My editor in chief was just a couple years younger than me, and he ran the comic books in the store. So we had just a great feel for it. And that's what got us into the collecting side of it. And then what happened was we used Wizard. We used it as a beta for every other business we wanted to get into. We really incubated every other new business through Wizard Magazine. So as we became toy collectors and action figures, we would write about action figures. And all of a sudden, we'd go from 2 pages to 4 pages to 10 to 12, 16 pages of coverage, because the more we did, the more Mattel and Hasbro and everybody would send us all the cool stuff ahead of time. And then we'd flip that out into a new magazine. The same thing happened. We were into Magic the Gathering when that first started. I started playing, my guys started playing. We started doing some coverage in the magazine. We found out that a lot of people liked it. Boom, we spun that out into a card gaming magazine. We started, we were on the forefront of all the anime and manga that were coming into the US back in the late 1990s. Again, before it became big, we saw that it was going to be a big trend. We started writing about it, and then boom, we spun that out into a magazine. So we incubated a lot of things through the magazines. We really hit pay dirt one summer. We decided to throw a party for our magazines in the mid-1990s. Wizard was doing about 400,000 copies at the time, just in English, 75 countries, dozen languages. And then all of a sudden, we started an event called ComiCon, and 20,000 people showed up. And that changed everything. That was a party. It wasn't meant to make money. It wasn't meant to be a business. It was just meant to support the magazine and all the publishers and the artists and the writers and do as many fun things as we can. And it was really a magical experience, because that's really what brought everybody together, because to be a geek and a nerd back in those days all these people were very disenfranchised, and to bring them together and for them to realize that there was a lot of people like themselves out there, it really changed everything. That's what started it all.
Yeah, I want to get to Comic-Con in a minute, but
Yeah.
I think there's 2 things I think that I would love to have you talk a little bit more about. So one is, one of the things that Gareb talks about, and I remember this from being a kid, is when you collected comics, you didn't know the value of them. And so one of the things that Wizard did really well was they just had lists of what these comic books were worth. So people ended up using them as a default price guide before there were like official price guides out there. So it meant you had to always collect the magazine itself, because then it was like, I need to know what my Spider-Man 158 is worth, and maybe it went up $3, which was this great habitual behavior before we ever had the internet. I want you to talk about that. But I also want to say, because we had this experience again last week in Miami, Gareb, which is we'll run into someone and I've had this multiple times now with you, and this one was like Snowfro, Eric Calderon. We introduced you, and then the minute you're like, oh well, I made Wizard magazine, Eric goes into this whole diatribe of like, I collected these magazines and I had this and I had that, and so many people who are like Top Shot collectors, like that are collectors of NFTs in the crypto space, all had their roots collecting your magazine. And I'm sure you get that all the time of people who are just like realizing this was kind of their first like marriage of collectibles and data at the same time coming together. So tell us about like that idea of putting price guides or prices in the magazine itself.
Yeah, so to hit on both of those, there wasn't a really great modern price guide for comic books. At the time, there was a good price guide that covered the old comic book, Silver and Golden Age, and it came out once a year. And to expect price changes throughout the year was just, it was ridiculous that it was annual because prices were always changing on these things. So there wasn't a really great modern price guide. So what we did was we had a massive, massive database of every comic book coming out. We had about 130,000 copies that we had amassed of different comics in our database. And we had a whole team that would scour shows, stores, get feedback, and figure out what the pricing was. And because we were once a month, and there was no internet, so there wasn't like an eBay where there was very, very active trading on anything in particular. I mean, it was active, but not like what's it going for this minute or something just came out and we have to know right now. But we had a very, very accurate price guide. And then we also were very innovative because we wanted to say, okay, well, here are the prices. And we also were very big about how do you kind of flip through thousands of listings and see things that were going up or down. So we innovated by putting blue bars if something was new to the price guide, green if it went up in value, red if it went down in value with the arrows. So it was very easy to flip through thousands of listings to see what went up or down. But then we also did a lot of other unique things, which was we put out a lot of lists. I was very, very big into lists. So we would always have the top 10 artists, the top 10 writers, the top 10 comic books, the top 10 new books that came out by sales volume. And what we did was we constantly gave people things to look at and to want to collect and to see what was moving up or down. We would always feature artists and writers, and then we would say, okay, what are their first appearances? Because if a new artist or new writer came up, what was the first appearance? People wanted to collect that. So going back to the collecting, we said to ourselves, what would we want to know about this, right? So take a character like Deadpool. Deadpool's coming out. Okay, what are the first appearances of Deadpool? Okay, who was the artists and writers on Deadpool, right? So it was like all of a sudden, we can give a collector a very good overview of what was going on in the business and make it really, really easy for them to collect. And then the magazine became like such a hot magazine because people would want to see what our number one picks were, what was the hottest books in the country or what went up the most in value, because then people would want to get a big jump start. And we would always have something new that we would feature. And if we featured it, we sold 400,000 copies of the magazine. We sold better than 98% of the comic books out there. So if we featured something, everybody would want to go get it because they knew it was going to get sold out. So we were
drove
very
up value
very,
of the books itself.
yeah.
Too.
So we were very, very big on promoting that side of it. The next thing that we were talking about is, meeting people that had an affinity for the magazine. And two things about that. One is when we started, I didn't have a publishing career. I didn't have a English major background. The guy that was my editor-in-chief and close friend, he didn't even graduate high school. So when we wrote about things, we talked to our fans like we were your best friend in the world. We wanted to make sure that we wrote the way we spoke. And if we liked something, we told you we liked it. If we didn't like it, we told you we didn't like it. We told you why we didn't like it. And we would also get you down these rabbit holes of like, if you like this, try this. And we were so good about tuning into the taste and the voice of our audience that when you were growing up, going back to being a geek or a nerd, it was a very lonely experience because to come out and say you were a geek or nerd, you might as well admit that you're a loser out there. And that's really what it was. It was a very derogatory term. So when people read our magazine, they felt like they had a friend. They really felt like it. It's almost the way people feel about some of their social media people that they follow or TV stars that are and shows that they like. There's this connection that they have that they associate with themselves and with those people. People had that with our magazine. And I come across it now generationally. I meet people that grew up reading it, and we have such a warm place in their heart for what we did because they really genuinely felt like we were their friend back in those days. And it couldn't have happened at that time. It only took years to decades afterwards to be able to experience and kind of bring back that feeling people used to have when they were a kid. And it's actually one of the most wonderful things that I get to experience in life now.
That's so amazing. And just hearing, your passion around this, Gareb, is so great because you can just tell that you love this stuff, you know this stuff. You took something but like a niche community from feeling like they weren't cool to
Right.
realizing, in fact, I am cool and I have this whole community of
Right.
people who loves the same type of thing that I do. You said something that was interesting though. You were talking about your sort of rating system and how you all were tracking that through the green and red arrows. You said that was pre-internet. But then the internet comes along. How did the internet revolutionize your business?
The internet just sped everything up. It was both, ironically, it was both a blessing and a curse. And it was a blessing in that we had an opportunity to get to so many more people. And I kind of use social media as kind of an example of how when things go very digital, there's an equal and opposite reaction in the physical. So even though when social media came out, everyone was like, "Oh, we're never going to want to meet in person again because all my friends are online," and mostly through Facebook at the time, something unique was happening, which was all of a sudden the first people that you friended were the people that you knew. But then the second phase of the people you connected with were people that you had an affinity towards. Here are my fellow Star Wars collectors, and they're all over the world. And here are my fellow Spider-Man fans, and they're all over the world. So all of a sudden, people started connecting with like-minded people that weren't their friends, but they had a similar interests. And I kind of picked up on that, and it did one of two things. It really hurt our magazines because all of a sudden, information became free to share. And the second thing was I knew that eventually these people were going to want to meet in person. So on the one hand, it significantly hurt the magazine, but on the other hand, it significantly helped the ComiCon business. So I kind of used that excuse to start acquiring lots of Comic-Cons all over the country and acquired, I think, about 18 to 20 of them. So we went from 2 Comic-Cons to like almost 14 or 15 that we produced overnight. And it really helped instill us and our voice in a very, very big way.
And you and I spoke about this at dinner the other night, but like Comic Con just stands for Comic Convention, which we all
Yeah.
call them in the same way they were like Star Wars conventions and all these other ones. But you really turned it into a brand, which I believe you ended up selling after you had 20 or so of them. I'm interested in sort of like the evolution of that event over time because you're doing something out of passion and then it just becomes a business and running that many events. We do 2 of them and it almost breaks us. I can't imagine doing 14, 16, 18. So like, what are the lessons of people who are trying to scale their events today that you learned from doing Comic-Con?
Yeah, so when it went from kind of a fun thing to a business, we never lost sight of the fun part of it. And I really kept the people that produced the magazine away from the economics of the magazine and did the same thing at the events. I kept the people that were in charge of creating fun experiences and bringing people together away from the economics of what to do and how to do that. And it doesn't mean that there wasn't some point of connection, but the critical component was how do we get people there? And then how do we make people feel special once they're there? And we were a consumer event. And a lot of people that produce events go into it with the mentality of what I would call like a trade show or a business component of it, which is we're going to put on an event and we're going to invite all these companies, and these companies are going to be responsible for creating the content at these events. So if they don't have the right companies attending, the fans won't have the right content that's there. And that's the way a trade show is produced. A comic show that we would do, we never lost sight that we were in charge of the content. And it doesn't mean that the companies weren't responsible, but what we would do is we would give the companies the tools to create fun things. So it wasn't just the panels, it was how do we create exclusives? How do we create contests? How do we create all kinds of things that engaged fans in ways that being in a live event setting would only make possible. And that was kind of like a big key to our success, was we never turned over the responsibility of entertaining the fans to other people. We kept that control. And that's what really made it so great, was that we controlled it, but we also empowered these companies to do stuff. And if they wanted to have fun and they wanted to have lines and it wanted to get crazy, we figured out how to contain the crazy, not just don't do it. That's what kind of happened in the past. And it really helped explode it. And then to go from one to many, then it was the idea of how do we kind of cookie cutter the operation in terms of making sure that we get companies or people to want to commit to multiple shows all throughout. All of our graphics, all of our everything was going to try to be as much as possible. But we also knew that not every show was equal. And we knew that certain shows were going to be called what we call like our feeder shows. There were going to be smaller events, but our goal was to create some excitement there so that eventually they might want to go to one of our bigger shows. And that was our goal. It was like we knew we couldn't create a big show in every single market. So it was like, how do we create a small, medium, and large show? And then depending on the market, it could graduate. Like a show that we used to do in Austin, we knew that the minute that was going to be like a small to medium show, but the second tickets went on sale, they exploded for us. We knew that was going to be a bigger show, and we would have to put a lot more support behind it because it was going to be really big, right? So we knew very quickly, that a show was going to be big or small, almost right out of the gate.
So, Gareb, I make you tell the story every single time I'm out with you, with anyone. All of us know how people dress up for Comic-Con, right? It's such a big cosplay moment.
Unpack that, Sam, just in case a listener doesn't know.
Right.
Just give us a
When you go to
taste.
Comic-Con, you will see characters dressed as so many of their favorite characters. And at this point, it's like it could be your favorite character from a podcast you listen to. It's definitely from comics and movies. There's a lot of obscure characters. There's all this stuff that makes it very theatrical when you go to any Comic-Con. And I think it was the first time I met Gareb, he was like, "Oh, do you want to know why people dress up for Comic-Con? Because that started with us." And I was like, "Tell us." And it's such a great story that, Gareb, please tell our audience, tell Avery the story of why people dress up for Comic-Con.
Yeah, it is a really fun story because we were at the origin of so many things that have emerged in the geek and nerd culture. And people almost take for granted that it's always been around, but it wasn't. So when we started, we would always have a Halloween costume contest issue. And Halloween obviously was October 31st, but this was pre-internet. So people had to physically take pictures, print them out, put it in an envelope with a stamp, mail it to us, and we'd have to get them, and we'd have to tell people to rush it so that we can get it into the issue that came out in December and January. I mean, that was the lag time of it. So we knew that we were doing our first show. It was a July, August timeframe. And we said, wow, wouldn't it be great this year if we could actually show the Halloween costumes in the Halloween issue? So we called out to all the fans in the months prior to to the show. We said, hey, at the show, we're going to do our Halloween contest issue. Please dress up in your costume so we could take your pictures and put it into the Halloween issue. So we get to the show, and all of a sudden, we had hundreds of people dressed up in costume. And all the fans went nuts because, oh, what the hell are people wearing costumes for? And everybody wanted their picture with the costume people. And it was just such a hit. And we took everybody's picture. We had a contest. We gave people, I think it was like a few $100 worth of stuff that we got. And we put it in the magazine. And it finally hit the October issue. And because the magazine was in 75 countries, it went all over the world. And people were just freaking out that, how did you get these costumes and pictures in the magazine? And then at the time, a whole bunch of other shows had started, and we started, and then everybody started copying us, with getting the people in costume, because it was one of these experiences that couldn't have happened without the help of all the fans participating. It wasn't anything we could have done. It was literally through the participation of our audience that enabled that experience to happen. And it really was just it was actually just a viral experience, right? And there wasn't even that word viral back then for experiences. And it was just one of those things that just hit so big.
And one of the things I love about the story is it's like rooted in the old print deadlines of when you had to submit art in order to get your
Right.
magazine printed.
Now you're like, oh, tweak it.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
So the fact is, like, it only exists because their show happened to be in July, and then for an October issue, right? That was the
Yeah.
right timing in order to make it happen.
We had a really fun party one year. We decided to do a zombie beach party, and we took over a whole bar / club, and we had, and this is also like, pre-Walking Dead. It was like, we want everybody to dress up like a zombie version of the superhero that they love. So it wasn't just even a matter of dressing up as a superhero. It was like, we want you to be a zombie version of that superhero. So we had so much fun with it.
That's amazing. And I've always been curious how that Comic-Con, Halloween, that costume thing started. So now we know the origin, which is amazing. What other sort of cultural moments were born at Comic-Con?
So a lot of them are on unique collectibles, and also a lot of products became industries through that world. And by that, I mean is, take something like Magic the Gathering, right? Up until this point, before Magic started, there were role play games like Dungeons and Dragons and things like that where people played. And that role play games were an industry, a small one, but it was an industry. But Magic the Gathering was just a game. So when we started a magazine and then had the gaming companies that were making card games to the shows, all of a sudden people could play live. We helped turn a one game product into an industry. And the same thing with anime and manga. At the time, there was material coming in, but it wasn't in bookstores, it wasn't on television, it wasn't anything that people read other than the comics, or through literally like backhand. It was kind of funny, but like VHS tapes and beta tapes were like the biggest thing at the shows. And we helped turn that into something that people love to do here in the US. And same thing with action figures. At the time, it was just, Hasbro, Mattel making action figures. And it was a product for the toy companies, but it wasn't an action figure industry. And by doing the magazine and then having them at the shows, all of a sudden that helped turn that into an industry. So all of a sudden, like McFarlane Toys could all of a sudden reach their audience directly in a way that they couldn't do because the internet didn't even exist back then. So that's one thing that happened, through there. And
Gareb, also, I mean, I feel like just the grading of comics happened
Yeah.
in many ways because of going to these shows. Suddenly we want them to be like graded from the same group, right, across all shows. I even think of celebrity like signings. There's so many things that feel like were probably born in this time period, right?
Yeah. So absolutely. Those are two things that really emerged from this, which was definitely the celebrity side of it. So up until when we were doing shows, there really wasn't this it wasn't seen as cool for big celebrities to come to these shows. It was really meant for the people that just want to kind of sell their autograph or, like that kind of thing. And autographs were the commodity. Autographs were the things that people were after. That's what they wanted to buy. And as the shows progressed and as we got bigger and as more TV shows started emerging, all of a sudden it was like we would start getting more and more celebrities there. My brother and I were very, very big on reaching out to the celebrities or their agents or the managers. If we liked their TV show, we would just like call them up and be like, hey, come to the show. We'll give you a hotel and a table and you'll come to the show. And that really started catching on. And then the more that came out, but then something also very magical happened as the level of talent kept rising. We were like, all right, we'll now pay for talent to be there. We'll pay 25 grand or 50 grand. The first time we had to pay like $100,000 for a celebrity to be there. We were like freaking out. We're like,
Who was it?
We couldn't imagine. It was one of the Doctor Who people, believe it or not.
Okay.
But
what year was this ish?
Oh, I want to say like early 2000s. like 2005, 6, in that
So it
range.
feels like a David Tennant moment or something.
Yeah,
like
it was David Tennant, actually.
Yeah.
I didn't want to kind of go to paint, but yeah. But and then as these shows started getting bigger and as fans started wanting them, it just got bigger and bigger. And then my brother and I were like, wow, it's getting very expensive to bring them here, and we can only sell so many autographs. So we said to ourselves, well, how else can we monetize or make money with the talent that we have there? So we said, what if we took professional pictures of fans with the talent? And fans would literally, take like either disposable cameras or like they'd have really nice cameras at the shows. And it would be no problem to take a picture with the celebrity. People really didn't even ask that much for it. But the ones that did, all of a sudden we started charging for it. So like I remember like we started charging like $20 for a picture with Lou Ferrigno, the guy who plays the Hulk. And people wanted to literally hang my brother and myself. Like, how could you charge for a photo? It's always free. Like for a picture, we wanted to charge money. And people were like killing us. But it would be in a photo booth and there'd be a nice background. And there weren't even like digital cameras back then. And then something else magical happened. All of a sudden, digital cameras started popping up with your phone. And then once social media came out, all of a sudden, the photo with a celebrity became the FOMO. All of a sudden, that became the badge of honor. Look who I got to meet, that you could show off to your friends on social. And that became huge. So that was like a massive leg up for us. And then something else magical happened, which was all the Marvel films started coming out. And all of a sudden, these superheroes started becoming the biggest celebrities in the world. And then that changed, that took it from 100% growth to like 1,000% growth. And all of a sudden now, we were starting to pay hundreds of thousands of dollars to bring celebrities to the shows. The commodity absolutely became, which superhero can I get my picture with? So yeah, that was a very, very big deal in terms of the progression of the ComiCon and what we did. There was kind of two parts of the celebrity. There was other shows like the one in San Diego where the studios would bring the talent to show footage and things like that, but you would never get to meet the celebrity. They'd be in a room with 6,000 people on a stage far, far away. And 6,000 people would be in that room, but 200,000 people would be there. So literally 6 out of 200,000, 6 out of 200, you're talking about 97% of the people never got a chance to actually even, witness or experience the celebrity. We took a different approach. Not only could you pay for a photo or an autograph, we built massive rooms so that anybody at the show that would want to catch, the celebrity on stage, they could literally be in the room with them. So we created a lot more of a boutique VIP type experience for people. And yeah, that just exploded.
Gareb, you said something earlier, which leads us to what you're doing now. But you said the autograph was the commodity.
Yeah.
At those shows, and clearly you and your brother figured out how to make that work for a massive group of people. So your new company is StarPics. Tell us what it's doing, because I think it's a really unique approach to how we kind of continue to feed this collectibles audience, and tell us also a little bit about the collectibles audience as a whole, numbers wise.
Yeah. So I started a new company called StarPics, and what we're doing is celebrity autograph trading cards. So we're giving people an access and an insight that has been kind of uniquely my advantage in life to be able to bring to fans.
This is video if you want to show one, by the way.
Yeah, I've got. I'm going to show. Yeah, and yeah. So the thing about trading cards is I've been a collector my whole life. I've collected Star Wars cards and Marvel cards and sports cards, again, because that's what I grew up with. And that business changed a lot over the years. And it went from being autographing a comic book or autographing a card was literally considered defacing it years ago. You would ruin the value of a card or a comic if you took a pen and signed it. But then about 15 years ago, 20 years ago or so, in the card market, that changed. All of a sudden, signing a card added value to it. Michael Jordan signing a rookie card, or Kobe or LeBron signing a rookie card added a tremendous amount of value to that card. And the company started doing that. And then that happened in the comic book world. But then something else happened in that world where it became so prevalent and so many people to signing that all of a sudden they started affixing stickers to cards. And the athletes stopped signing the cards themselves and more signing stickers that were affixed to the card. So as a card collector and an autograph collector, so many things have changed over the last few years that my brother and I wanted to go back to what is the heart of card collecting and collecting autographs that really made us want to get back into that and kind of change that world and be innovative. So that's what StarPics was all about. And the whole idea was to create a card like such. This is Patrick Stewart. And it's a red autograph, 1 of 5 version. And there's a lot of features that are built into this card that are not typical, actually, to a regular autograph trading card. And by that, I'm talking about when Patrick signs the card, he actually signed the physical card. So he had to touch, his DNA is on this card. So as an autograph collector, you want to know that the celebrity actually had some interaction with that product. And when an athlete's signing a sticker, they don't even know what they're signing. They just know they're signing a sticker, and it might get affixed to a jersey. It could be a photograph. It could be a poster. It could be a baseball. It could be anything. The second thing is that the holder that it's in is with a company called CGC. And it's both JSA, which is the company that they witness autographs, and they also authenticate the card. So CGC, this is a tamper-proof, archival quality holder, which means that people put Mickey Mantle rookie cards in this thing. And this is what it looks like. It's sonically sealed. And then there's a date here. The date.
Explain sonically sealed.
That means that there's no welding, no glue, no anything. They use a very, very high pitch machine that sonically seals the plastic together.
Like with sound, that's how it seals.
Yeah, it's literally a
sound. It's
sound.
Not a vacuum, it's a sound.
I've
never heard of that before. That's pretty impressive. Although the VFriends guys probably know all about sonic seals.
Oh yeah, definitely. And then it's date stamped, meaning that exactly in this particular case, it was October 10th, 2024, when he physically signed the card. So again, over time, celebrities change their autograph or what have you. So when it happens in time. There's a unique number here. There's a grading of the card. So this is a 10 on the quality of the card. There's an autograph 10, meaning that the way he signed it perfectly. And then there's a unique number. So the card actually has a unique barcode, a QR code. So when you go to this QR code online, you could actually see a picture of this card. So you're buying it exactly the card that was meant to be. So it wasn't tampered or played with. So it's online. It's not on chain, but it's everything. It's on chain without being on chain is really how well there's a lot of sophisticated technology behind what's involved in this card. And what we're doing is every card is coming in a box like this. So we're doing drops. So we'll do 41 of each card. And we've created a box like this that's like literally the size of your iPhone box. And then inside each box comes a card. And in this case, Paul Rudd is the first card that we have. It's going live tomorrow, actually.
Wow. I'd get that card. I love Paul Rudd.
So at 1:00, all 41 cards are
very
available.
handsome.
Now.
Yes.
This is one of a 10 prismatic foil version. He signed the card. It's a 10. It's a 10 autograph. He signed this card on 7/16, July 16th. It's got the QR code and that's the card. And so it's really exciting what we're doing. I'll show you a few more that we're doing. This is Orlando Bloom we did.
Yeah.
So we had a signing with Orlando. We did one with Evangeline Lilly.
Amazing.
So we did one there. This was one of my favorites. This is going to sell. I don't even want to sell these. These are like my favorites. We did Ozzy Osbourne. And
right,
so
my favorite of the stack right now.
Yeah, it's unbelievable. Here's some more Kelsey Grammer.
Wow.
We did. There's another one. We did Megan Fox. And the beauty is that when I could call a celebrity, I'm including athletes, musicians, influencers, people like that. We have a lot of people coming up. We just did a signing with Robert De Niro. We've got signings coming up with some of the biggest name athletes in the world. So it's really exciting for us because to be able to provide these kind of unique, very limited edition products for people who are fans of these incredible people.
So Gareb, we got to wrap up. Final question for you though is, you've seen the rise now over a long career of collectible culture, going from, again, as you said, almost like a loser mentality, kind of very nerdy, very in the closet, to now we have entire shows on Netflix about collecting. We have celebrities collecting Pokemon cards. People are collecting everything: shoes, watches, NFTs, whatever it may be.
Yeah.
What do you think, just to sort of like wrap up your ethos or your thesis about this, like why do you think people are so invested in collecting things that they're passionate about?
People love to have a physical tie to something that makes them feel warm and welcome and positive, and maybe alludes to an experience that they had or an interaction that they may have had. And it really brings people back to a happy place. And it's that constant reminder of where they were or who they were with, or the chase of the collection, or where they found it. And people may forget a lot of things, but rarely do they forget these experiences. And when you talk to a collector, they can almost tell you a story behind everything they own, because they had to find just that right way of getting it and what they want it for. And there's always that kind of story. And I believe that on a going forward basis, physical collectibles are actually going to increase in what people want. Now, it doesn't mean people are going to want every piece of everything, but I do think that in an age of AI, where things are going to go very highly digital and very highly mechanical in that regard, that there's going to be, again, an equal and opposite reaction to wanting the physical. And people are going to want what I would call 100% handmade, meaning like computers weren't used in the process to make something. And I think there's going to be a real big push to that. And people are going to want to collect something that has an affinity towards something in content or entertainment or other people that make them feel special. And I just feel like we're in the right track. And also because of the nature of the size of it, it has a portability factor to it, and we live in a world where people are so mobile, that the idea that I can go to anywhere and bring my collection with me is really something that I think for the future is going to be really where it's going.
All right. Well, Gareb, thank you for spending the time with us today. Love hearing your stories.
I learned so much. Now I want Megan Fox's card. I didn't even know Megan Fox would have an autographed card, but now I know it, and it's with StarPics.
I can't wait to get the Gary V card. I'm definitely going to put a bid on that. So Avery, maybe we can make that happen. But yeah, Gareb, thanks for joining us. We're looking forward to seeing how things go with StarPics. Hopefully we'll have you at Consensus next year. And yeah, just excited to follow the journey, man.
Yeah, thank you. Love talking about this stuff. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Gareb.